Hello again and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio. I'm Dave and in this video I'm going to be answering a question that was sent in by Tony. Tony says, playing in a church band, I use fingerstyle mostly in a contemporary music style. I can't get my Takamine or Ibanez Classical to sound through our PA using a Loudbox 60 or JC 120. I'm overrun by piano, bass, drums, singers and rhythm Fender Electric. I have always wanted a Godin, but will the Encore move me up front with my fingerstyle picking? Okay, that's a good question, so let's get into it. Tony mentions the Godin Encore. This guitar, so presumably he's been watching one of the videos I've done where I've featured this guitar. It's a Godin Multiac Encore nylon string, so it's a bit of a hybrid between a classical guitar and an electric guitar. So it's got some pickups in there and preamps and electrics to allow you to amplify it. So will this work better than the Takamine or the Ibanez for making yourself heard in a mix? Well, the first thing is don't just throw volume at the problem. Don't just try and make yourself louder. There could be something a bit more fundamental going on. So let's talk about the factors that influence the sound and how you're perceived alongside your fellow musicians. Now, I'm presuming from the question that you're playing the guitar using pickups rather than a microphone in front of the guitar, because there's two ways you can pick up the sound from an acoustic guitar. The traditional way is to put a microphone in front of you and play to that, or if you've got a guitar that's got a pickup system, is to plug into it. Think about the microphone, which I don't think is your case because you're specifically asking about the Godin, which is you've got some sound in the room, but it's not super loud. Certainly not as loud as a regular acoustic guitar. If you are using a microphone, think about where the microphone is positioned relative to the guitar, because it will pick up the sound differently. So that's something to consider, but I don't think is your particular use case, Tony. You're talking about, I'm guessing, a guitar with a pickup system. So the Godin, yes, it does have two pickups. It's got the piezo pickup and it's also got a pair of soundboard transducers. So the piezo pickup picks up the sound purely from the way the strings vibrate against the saddle. The sound goes in through the saddle to a little piezo thing underneath. That converts the vibration into an electrical signal. And then there's something underneath the bridge here. This like the soundboard transducers. Similar sort of thing. It's taking the vibration, but in this case it's the vibration from the guitar itself, and converting that to an electrical signal. Now they do have a different sound, but the sound is pretty. It's not worlds apart. So this is all one pickup system, and this is the other. The guitar sound that you're hearing, by the way, is just the pickups. For the mix for the video, I'm killing the room mic while I'm playing, so you're just hearing the sound of the pickup going into an amplifier. I've got a little Yamaha THR5A behind me there, and then that's going into the recording device. So you're just hearing the sound of the guitar. You're not hearing the sound of the room. So the two pickups there, playing with the piezo, playing with the undersaddle transducers. There's a little bit of difference in sound, but they're not worlds apart. So don't think that this is going to open up options by giving you a whole new voice to your guitar. It's not. There's a difference there, but it's kind of subtle. And the thing to consider with acoustic guitar pickup systems, particularly like piezos, the converting the vibration of the string into an electrical signal. And a piezo pickup, really, it doesn't have the opportunity to take the factors like the wood, the guitar body shape and size and construction, all that into account. It's very direct vibration turned into electrical signal. So there's not a huge amount of difference between one piezo pickup and another. Where the shaping of the sound comes in is the preamp that's built into the guitar. what that gives you in terms of being able to shape the EQ and things like that, boost the bass, boost the treble, cut frequencies, that sort of thing. I don't think the Godin is perhaps like the silver bullet that you're hoping it will be. There's other factors to consider, and the most important one I just sort of touched on when I was talking about like the idea of the preamp and shaping the sound is think about your EQ, think about the frequencies that you're using in your sound and how they fit with everybody else that you're playing alongside. Now, Tony, in your case, you've got a problem because you've got a vast variety of instruments that you're playing alongside. And if you think about what happens is everybody's got their own, it's like space in the sonic spectrum. And this is a slight digression. This is something is quite common with electric guitar players, is they'll practice at home, get a sound you're really happy with. Oh, well, I like that sounds great. Then start playing in a band context and the guitar just disappears. And the reason is that you picked a sound which is really, really good. It's it's got fatness to it or whatever. Then as soon as you play in a band context where you got the bass taking up a lot of the bottom end of the sonic spectrum and like the kick drum and whatever, taking up a lot of the lower and the lower frequencies and the lower mids, some of your guitar signal just kind of gets blended into those other instruments, and you get lost in the mix. And in a band context, you actually need to something with a bit more presence, something with a bit more top end to cut through and use a bit of the sonic spectrum that your bandmates aren't using. And so it is with, in your case, you've got the singers. I'm guessing if it's in in your context that it's going to be quite a lot of singers with various ranges in like bass through to tenor or whatever, but taking up space in the sonic spectrum. A keyboard covers a huge range, so it's very easy to get lost in the mix. So like I said, don't just throw volume at it. Think about what sounds you're hearing from everybody else, and think about well, am I hearing a lot of top end? Am I hearing a lot of bottom end? Is there somewhere where there might be a vacancy, if you like? And then tweaking your guitar sound to suit. If you're playing amplify, you can go into an EQ pedal would be really, really useful. So you've got something you can dial in and boost particular frequencies to kind of push through. And on the subject of pedals, like an EQ pedal, it could be a useful addition to your rig. You might want to think about what other effects could be helping or hindering. I don't know what else you're using in terms of your signal path. Are you using compression? Compression is useful in some contexts and it can be problematic in others. If you're using a lot of compression, are you running the risk that you're cutting off some of the attack of the guitar as you're striking the strings? That initial attack, is that getting squashed down by the compressor? So your guitars, as you're striking the strings, the guitar's just not making itself heard properly. So maybe consider, if you are using compression, consider not using compression. Or another option could be to think about adding effects. Now, you mentioned JC120, so I'm guessing that's a jazz chorus, and you're using the bright channel to so you get quite a full sonic spectrum available to you. You could get all the top end. So JC120 jazz chorus. Using a chorus effect that's built in, or get something like a chorus pedal, something that'll give you a bit of modulation, change the voice of the guitar, and perhaps give you a bit more differentiation. If you mentioned an electric rhythm guitar, if that's playing completely dry, then adding some modulation into your sound will give you a bit, something that makes you a little bit more distinct, and you stand out in the mix a little bit more. I'm playing here with a little bit of reverb, but that's about it. If I swing around, and add some chorus in there. Yeah, it just adds a bit more texture to the signal. You might like that, you might not, but it's something you might want to consider. As well as considering where you sit in the sonic spectrum, you know, the frequencies that your guitar is using in the sonic spectrum, is to think about the spatial spectrum. And this depends a little bit on the listening context and the listening environment. But the idea of, if you think about playing in stereo, you know, back in the old days when everything was in mono, all the sounds are just compressed into one space. Now when we went to stereo, we were able to separate things out, and particularly if you listen to some records like late 60s, early 70s, there was a real trend, like in rock music, you would hear drums were kind of like there in the sonic spectrum, guitar was over there, bass was over there, really, really spread out. Deep Purple recordings, some of the things like, you know, Machine Head and whatnot. John Lord's Hammond is panned right the way over to one side. Richie Blackmore's guitar is panned right the way over on the other, and you get excellent separation between the two because they're in different spaces. So in your listening environment, is it something you can get your sound guy to position you in a different place in the stereo spectrum that might give you a little bit more separation? Like I say, it depends on the listening environment if the listeners are going to get that stereo separation, or if the sound is just going to be, if it's in a really big room, things might bounce around a little bit and you lose that separation. But it's something to bear in mind. And speaking of your sound guy, and I don't want to cast aspersions here, but is your sound guy any good? Does he know how he or she, do they know how to mix the sound for the instruments that you're using in the environment that you're using? Because many bands have been ruined by a bad sound engineer. You say you're working in I think you say it's like a worship environment, something like that. Is this somebody who specialises in working in that environment, or is it somebody whose day-to-day job is actually working with rock bands, and they just happen to go to the same church as you, and they say, "Oh yeah, I know how to mix," but they're not as familiar with that kind of environment? So I'm not saying blame your sound engineer, but have you got the confidence that the person who's doing your mix understands the instruments involved, the environment that you're playing in, and all that sort of stuff? The last thing I want to talk about is how you actually strike the strings. Now, Tony, in your email, you mentioned you're playing fingerstyle. Now, fingertips, if you are literally playing with your fingertips, that's quite a soft way to touch the strings, particularly on a nylon string guitar. You know, there's not a lot of attack going on there. Consider maybe could you grow your fingernails a bit longer and get a little bit more. Actually, my nails are really short, but if you play with your fingernails, my nails are way too short to be able to do this. Hopefully you can hear that. If you play with nails, you get a little bit more attack to the when you hit the strings, and that might help your guitar just to cut through. You know, I was talking before about using compression and how that can kill the attack on the note. This is kind of the inverse of that. It's about using something harder to hit the strings to give you a bit more attack. Now you're talking about using fingerstyle. The last thing I'll mention is the idea of using picks. So if I reach into my pocket, over here, get a couple of guitar picks. This is one of my PhatPhish guitar picks, because as well as doing all of this, I have a business making and selling guitar picks. This is the sort of pick I use on an electric guitar. It's a Kieranite acrylic pick. Now I find that works great on the electric, but on a nylon string acoustic, I think it sounds a little bit muffled. Whereas something like this, which is the celluloid pick, it's attacking the strings slightly differently, and it works a bit better. So maybe not so much in the case of a fingerstyle picker, but if you are using a pick and you want to make yourself better heard in the mix, Well, what kind of pick are you using? There's a whole rabbit hole to go down with guitar picks, but the size, the shape, the material all affect the way that you play and the way the pick strikes the string, the sound it gives the guitar. So if you use picks, think about experimenting perhaps with different materials and different sizes and thicknesses, because they will affect the way that the guitar sounds, and it all affects how you sound in the mix, how your guitar cuts through and makes itself heard alongside everybody else. Okay, so we've covered quite a few things there. I guess the bottom line, Tony, in your case, is would a guitar like this Godin be a solution to your problem of being better heard alongside your other musicians? I'm not convinced that this is the solution that you're hoping it will be. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a lovely guitar. I would recommend if somebody wants a guitar like this, the Godin is an excellent choice. But in terms of the problem of being heard alongside other musicians, I think there's factors like EQ, your space in the sonic spectrum, use of effects, things like that, which would have a much more profound influence for the better on how you're heard, more so than the guitar. I mean, not to take anything away from this guitar, I say it is absolutely lovely, a lovely instrument, but I don't think this is the silver bullet that you're hoping it would be. Okay, hopefully you found that useful. If you did, please click like down there. If you really enjoyed it and you want to see other videos that I post on the channel, then please click subscribe, which is also down there, and there's a bell icon somewhere, so click that and you get notified anytime I upload new videos onto the channel. You're welcome to leave a comment, but I don't always get notified by YouTube when people leave comments on videos. So if you've got something specific you want to ask me, whether it's about guitars, music theory, guitar playing, anything at all, do what Tony did. Go here, fill that form in, send your question in. That way I'm guaranteed to see it and I can get around to answering it in a future video. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.